Hello.
On time. Hello.
What's up?
Oh, the usual. So I'm just gonna launch right into it. You got an hour?
I got some time.
We'll see if it takes an hour. It may not take. Okay, so
Wait,
the idea
there's an
is
alternative.
what?
We could also meet somewhere for drinks and this.
There's not an alternative, and I'm about to explain that.
Okay.
That's hilarious, though. That's how you started this call. Okay. Anyway, you're about to understand this and why that's so funny. I had an idea today that has taken a couple forms over the course of the last few hours. I'm going to walk you through all of them here, and I want you to help me think through it, the right way to do it. The reason that I'm calling you here is because you're really good at sort of just being on the same page with me. You're very quick to tell me when I'm wrong. Usually you understand and can illuminate why I'm wrong about something immediately and then tell me straight to my face, no, Steve, you're an idiot. Here's why. That is great, super valuable. I need that. There are only a few people who can do that. Then second, you're one of the only people in the world who I think gets more mad at me if I don't record our conversations than if I do record our conversations. And that is especially useful right now because the thing I'm about to spring on you is that I want to start. Oh, I feel bad saying this because I feel like every podcast in the world is actually just two guys who think they're smart starting a podcast. But
I think that's probably true.
I'm starting a podcast. It's going to be video calls on Zoom, just like we're having now. They're about an hour, though I imagine that'll vary, right? And it'll basically just kind of be, let me tell you where this came from. So I was challenged by my friend who I've known since elementary school that nothing virtual can be as connecting. I think his intention was to express that the sort of intimacy you feel in an in-person conversation is strictly in-person conversations. He used the phrase connection, though, like real connection only happens in need space. And I think that's wrong and dumb. And so, especially as the curator of TEDx Colorado Springs, I get the power of online video. And so it hit me right in my heart and I was exceptionally triggered. And so I've been thinking about that for a couple days. And then today I saw a couple posts that were, Paul Graham posted a thing that was like, if you're interested in doing a video series, you should do it now because you'll be able to get a more interesting audience than possibly ever because everyone's going to be at home with nothing to do because of coronavirus. So that was interesting. Then a couple other people, I think Arlen Hamilton tweeted that if you are going to start a podcast ever, now is the time to start a podcast. And so she's like, you should start a podcast about stories now to the whole world. I'm like, who am I to not listen to that advice? And then the final straw was I saw David Perel, I think is how you pronounce his last name, post a tweet about, he was like, I have a business idea. You should put together a company that consults for other companies, teaching them how to start an internal podcast. Because if everyone is going offline or online over the course of the next several months, a lot of companies won't know how to do that. It'll be helpful for them to have an internal podcast so the company can keep up to date with each other asynchronously via audio in a way that is great for people. Very smart idea. I misread this tweet completely. I read it as someone out there should start a podcast that interviews companies that do remote work and ask them how they do remote work and share that with the world. And so those ideas all mashed together in my head today as I thought about what Mick said to me. And I was like, okay, hold on. There's got to be something here. And so it occurred to me around the time I texted you earlier today that what would be amazing is if I hosted a series of Zoom conversations. Oh, also, I put together the TEDx speaker instructions email today where I taught them how to use Descript, which is an amazing tool. Descript is so cool. And I've been thinking a lot lately about Zoom, the platform we're on right now, and how their stock price is probably going to, Slack too, and Netflix, as people spend more time online. So I think what I can do is put together I'm finally getting to the pitch. You understand how I got here, though. I want to have dinner with the CEOs of companies that are making the transition or have made the transition to remote work as sort of the start of this podcast. And then eventually I just want to have dinner with people that I think are fascinating, Joe Rogan style. But instead of a Joe Rogan, like 4-hour, let us deep dive into your life, I'm just going to share a meal with these people. We're both going to make dinner at home. We're going to have a Zoom call, and then we're going to talk. And we're going to have the same experience that you would have having a meal with someone, except you get to have whatever food you want because you get to cook it. So we'll be talking about preparing food for yourself at home. We'll be talking about what it's like doing the kind of work you do. We'll be talking about being a human and living life and harmony between work and life. And you know, we'll be people around each other in a way that I don't think interviews usually are. With people I don't know and I've never met before in an online video series where we get to share a meal together. That we don't have to coordinate, we don't have to be in the same place, we don't have to choose food we both like. We just get to share a meal together, like the core of sharing a meal together, thanks to Zoom. And then edit it so that it's not the most annoying thing ever because of videos cutting out and people saying things that don't make sense with Descript. Descript lets you edit these videos like to make them amazing automatically. You just read through the transcript, delete the words you don't like, and then it edits, right? So we're going to export from Zoom. We're going to put it into Script. We're going to run it past my assistant and either them or their assistant. People are going to cut and edit the parts they don't like, and then it's just going to get posted. There will be no post-processing beyond that. So the lighting might be terrible. We might be in just an awful, but it'll be just a video call. It doesn't have to be formal, right? Like it's just going to be having dinner with someone. And I think it's going to be so much fun. And also it's a light enough like work balance thing that I'm pretty sure I can do it daily or every other day and have it not even like affect the cadence of my life. I have to eat anyway. And like half of those meals I share with people, no matter what. Yeah, I'm very excited. I think it's going to be great. What do you think?
I like it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thanks, man. I think it's got to just be a conversation with someone over dinner for it to feel like authentic and approachable for the viewers. From running TEDx, I think people make things worse when they worry about making them good.
Huh. That sounds like me.
Yeah. So I don't want people to stress about it. People who are going to have a normal conversation, like even you and me, now that you realize that this might be the first one of those, you're less talkative than you usually are, right? And so I want people to know what it is before they get here. You're in a unique situation here. But then when they get here, I don't want them to feel like it's going to be that dramatic, because it's not. It's just going to be a conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So with that, shall we get into it?
Sure.
So if we had one of these conversations, what do you want to talk about?
My obsession is always systems of incentives to make it only profitable to do what's good. It's my obsession. I just got off of a call about that. So. What are we doing? What is this and why?
Well, we're getting breakfast together, but coronavirus style.
This is the quarantine version of friendship.
Yeah. So I want to do a little bit of the usual. And then also because it's kind of an interview as well, I want to do a little bit of, I guess, backstory or context.
Mm-hmm.
So, just for my own curiosity, because I don't think I've heard in a while.
Okay.
What are you working on lately?
Well, during the daytime, I'm working on solving the problem of parking and traffic management.
And that's
so I do that.
Hotspot.
I do that at Lotspot. Yep. So we have a camera that counts cars. It's very simple, you know.
Yeah, that's
and
cool.
And then we can tell you how much you should be pricing your parking lots at, or whether you should be building new parking lots, or where you should be sending your customers. All this great stuff. So that's my day job. In the evenings and weekends, when I'm not working on that, I'm thinking a lot about, I guess, a lot of things, but mostly like, how do we build systems of incentives to make it only profitable to do what's good? It's my obsession.
Only profitable to do what's good. And that you call moral capitalism.
Yeah, or moral markets. Yeah.
I'm glad we're having this conversation now, because you and I have talked about this a lot over the past couple of months. But for some reason, it just clicked in my brain for the first time that, like, isn't that just making sure that things are priced appropriately? Do you know what I'm referring to? So, like, a carbon tax, for example. You make sure that you include the price of the damage you're doing to the environment in the thing.
Yeah. It's just, you could think of it as a mechanism to price negative externalities, but also to discount positive externalities. So, like, think about education. Education has lots of positive externalities that society realizes.
Right.
So what if, like, I mean, there's like this whole political battle going on about, should we make education free or should it be subsidized, and blah, blah, blah. How should that work? Well, what if instead of having to make that decision at a governmental layer, you could make it at a market layer, is the question. What if the market could have all the incentive structures it needed in order to make that decision correctly? So that's the obsession, is how do you build, and basically that just means that there needs to be a profitable way to invest in human advancement, essentially.
So you're saying that I might not have to listen to people yell at each other about whether or not it's a good idea for years on end before actually getting my externalities priced?
Yeah, it's kind of like...
That sounds nice.
Yeah, like right now in politics we have this spread. We play this dumb game where we make arguments for things in a political manner, so it's all rhetorical, and then we send someone... Finally, we have some breakthrough, and we like do a thing, and then we try and evaluate in retrospect whether or not the thing that we did was good. And oftentimes there's no like evaluation process at all.
What does working on that look like right now? What is the most challenging part of it for you?
Figuring out how to make the economic system do what we want it to do. It's like a big problem that you face is you want to enable continuous funding for the system, but you also want to enable people who invest in the system to get wealthy, right? Otherwise, they have no financial incentive to do so. So how do you accomplish both of those things at once? And they're competing goals, because in order to provide continuous funding, you have to basically have a bunch of IPOs, right? Or ICOs. But as you increase the number of tokens available, you dilute the value of individual holdings. So that's like one of the problems that's there. It's a pretty big one.
Okay. So long as the economy that uses it, though, is growing, that's perhaps not a problem, though?
As long as it's growing faster than, faster than the dilution rate. But like, also faster than what an investor could find in other assets.
Oh, right.
Right.
Work as well as, I guess, the stock market.
Yeah. So that's and then this also has to, you can imagine that maybe it maintains a really fast growth rate for the first, let's say, I don't know, let's say 5 years, while we go from 0 all the way up to, I don't know, let's say it's $1 trillion. Let's say it's really big, $1 trillion market cap, whatever it is.
Right.
Then what do you do after that? You've reached this like large market cap, some sort of steady state. Can people really expect a return on investment? Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring values into the domain of economics. like my essential claim is that people have been saying, no, we need to be really careful to keep values out of this because we've seen what capitalism does to things, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you bring in a financial motive, it like destroys things. Some people would argue. Obviously not everybody, but like there's the same people that I do that would say that, you know, financial incentives ruin things.
Right. And some things that are very specific to people's hearts, like the things you see nonprofits started about. People have like very odd, contentious relationship with
money. Yeah. Especially because like there's like this notion that we shouldn't be paying people who start nonprofits really well. Right. That somehow that's either wrong or selfish or something like that.
But somehow it's not selfish when we pay a CEO. There's a great TED Talk on that.
Is there?
CEO enormous amounts of money. That's just the way the game is played. But when we pay a nonprofit CEO enormous amounts of money, that's corruption. Okay.
Yeah. And so we get really confused about this, and it seems that whenever we touch values that we actually really care about, we get really confused by this. It's like we have no problem paying the person who runs kind of the heartless company a lot of money, but we have trouble paying the good company CEO a lot of money. It's just completely backwards from what the mechanism that we'd actually want. And so my claim is just that we need to bring values into the domain of economics. We need to value values like truth. There should be a market cap of truth. There should be a market cap of well-being, and in particular human well-being. And that the reason that we've failed to price those things into the market today, the reason that capitalism is failing us today, is because we failed to price those things in. So and this is the problem, is we kind of have this like reflexive prophecy that says capitalism is bad for us. And I would then claim because we haven't put values into it, we haven't priced values in. But then people would argue that because it's bad for us, we shouldn't price values.
Right. So it becomes the self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
I think where you lost me earlier, though, is why build a whole new system to do this? Is there no way to change incentives for the current system so that we don't have to build price externalities with legislation, but we can have market dynamics to do it?
Oh, I think it is just a continuation of the existing system.
Okay.
Yeah.
The way you were talking about it, ICOs and all, sounded like a whole new. And I know we've, in our own conversations, thought about it maybe as an independent system before.
I would think about it as like a layer above capitalism that can operate on capitalism, but it would obviously still be underneath government intervention. So the government could still tell a moral market system what it can and can't do.
Right. It's just kind of an in-between layer.
It's an in-between layer, yeah.
That's cool.
And it addresses the problems that governments generally just aren't very good at addressing. Like, hold on, I'm pouring myself some coffee.
In a timely manner.
Yeah, like small changes. What we want is kind of like what we have right now are a lot of step functions. Like everything's going to shit, and then we intervene and solve problems. Yeah, and so it's like oh, all of our kids are addicted to nicotine again, thanks to Juul, and like this happens for like a decade.
Maybe we should legislate.
And then we're like, and then finally at the end of it, we're like, boom, okay, now we finally have legislation. That seems like a silly system. What if instead there was a way to like make that part of the profitability of a venture from the get-go?
That's awesome. That's a really good way to think about it. It is definitely a large open question how to actually do that, though.
Oh yeah, it's enormous. But it's like probably got to be the most worthy thing to think about at the moment.
It's up there. That's not bad. It's no colonizing Mars, but it's pretty good.
I mean, I would argue it's like I would argue it's more important because we could fund the colonization of Mars if we had the notion that colonizing Mars is good for humanity.
Yeah.
We can. That's an objective claim. Yeah, then we could price that, and then there'd be enormous quantities of funding, not only for Elon Musk to do it, but for anyone who's motivated to do it.
Suddenly, you don't have to be a tech billionaire.
You don't have to be. Yeah, we need less people to be as talented and hardworking as Elon Musk.
Yeah, that'd be great. we could design a system where you don't have to be Elon Musk to change the world, that would be
Right, yeah, because
prime.
none of us are Elon Musk.
No,
No,
not willing to work 180-hour weeks.
no, I think I'm incapable of it.
Yeah. That's fascinating. And then that would pay teachers well, and I don't think anyone's against that. Yeah, that sounds great. That just sounds marvelous. What are your best guesses at how we start that right now?
I think we have like 3. Yeah. What are you asking? Like, how do we implement it, or how do we what does the structure of the system look like, or
I like it and I want it. Where do we begin?
Or what do people have to? I think the big question is, what do people have to buy into? Because there's this thing that we've all tacitly agreed to that I don't think we recognize that we agreed to, which is that the U.S. dollar or any currency is itself valuable. The same thing is true with Bitcoin and Ethereum. Somehow we've all agreed that it's valuable, and yet we don't really interrogate why or where that value comes from.
You mean we don't have a market cap of the U.S. dollar?
No. What I mean is that you would, if I came to you and I offered you $5, $5 US, you would take it, no problem. You'd be like, yeah, this is valuable. I agree that this is valuable.
Okay.
And that mechanism, of course, it's not based on the gold standard. And even if it were based on the gold standard, then we've just kicked the bucket down the road. Now we have to explain why gold is valuable. Right. And so in my mind, the arbitrary of that, I think that arbitrariness should have a better word, but arbitrariness of that is a problem, or maybe an opportunity. Because what if instead of shoving, we've shoved kind of just a meaningless asset there, US
right.
dollar, what if we shoved something that we actually cared about? What if we tied this to a real asset that actually mattered? So what if human well-being was the asset that underpinned our markets? What if instead of the gold standard or the United States Treasury as the fundamental asset of humanity, what if well-being, maybe not just even human well-being, what if just well-being in general is what we tie the asset to? That's what we're backed by.
It becomes a question of then how do you measure that, right?
Yeah, of course. Which then is basically what the entire moral market is. It's a big betting system.
It's a big subjective self-reporting or betting system.
Hopefully objective. Hopefully it ties to objectivity and experiments,
That'd be nice.
where possible. Because it's also an objective question: what brings about the most satisfaction, or what brings about the most happiness in life?
It is. That's an objective question. That sounds like a very subjective question. How is that an objective question?
Well, the question is just, can it be studied, or could we determine mechanisms by which life satisfaction goes up or goes down? And the answer is definitely yes.
Definitely yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we capture it in its entirety? Maybe not. But can we capture anything in its entirety? No. But we still have no problem predicting the weather 2 weeks out. We have no moral problems with that at all. Yeah. And yet we're unwilling to be well, we should also do the same thing with people's happiness and well-being.
Oh, wow. So it's a well-being prediction marketplace.
Yep. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That really put it all together for me a lot better than I had it in my head. I'm glad we had this conversation. That's really cool. Wow.
What did you have in your head?
I had adjacent versions of that, I guess. I understood each of the pieces individually, but I don't think I understood it on its own.
Mm-hmm.
That level of, okay, this is where it belongs, and this is what it is, and this is how we do it. So that was cool.
Well, I think, okay, so I've got 9 ways to think about this.
Really? I'm ready. Let's hear them.
Okay.
What does the timeline on all this look like while you're finding your note? Is this something you're pretty excited about working on launching sometime soon, or is it still something where you don't know if there's clarity on how to launch it yet? Or
I think there's a feedback loop that looks like work on it, talk about it, find people who want to work on it with you, and then repeat the process.
That's fair.
I think ideas really do have a sense of currency, and that there's also like a kind of a sense of community that builds around certain ideas. And so I think by launch, right now we're in the world of how do we just find people that want to help build, but like maybe almost in prototype and code stage, maybe, or we might still be in like system design stage. Well, yeah. We're definitely in system design stage.
Definitely that.
Okay, so some ways to look at moral capitalism.
Okay.
As a way to better impose regulations faster and more precisely. As a way to reduce the penchant for capitalism to seek short-term over long-term rewards. So you're pricing in the long-term rewards, especially related to like negative externalities and positive ones, as a way to make cryptocurrency useful to the average person, which it's not at all. Of course, that's like, true. That shouldn't be a top-level goal, but it's for those of us who think crypto is cool.
Yeah,
it's a nice one. As a way to amend for the tragedies that occurred by assuming that economic actors are rational. There's an enormous tragedy that happens when we say, well, no, they wouldn't be buying, let's say, opioids or cigarettes if they weren't rational. And we assume all actors are rational, or at least for a very long time we have. Yeah. And so then we've just been like, okay, well, then it's fine to leave people using their highly addictive and bad for them products. And this is not assuming that. As a way for humanity to solve massive coordination problems, like, hey, we should build nuclear reactors. Where do we get funding for nuclear fusion reactors and nuclear fusion reactor research? Well, that's a good question. Like VCs are unlikely to do it. Governments are bad at doing it. As a way to make selflessness selfish, which is kind of what we do with capitalism anyways, but this takes it to the complete level. As a way to consider human well-being as a valuable asset, as a way to provide a loan to future humanity. It's like, or really for future humanity to pay us for the ways that we've helped them. As a way to codify and incentivize effective altruism. Mm-hmm. As a way to solve humanity's coordination problem. I think that was in there already. As a self-righting market system, unlike the one we currently have that needs a lot of babysitting by governments.
Yeah.
As a way to make capitalism less about consumerism and more about values, which I think we all kind of feel.
Right.
Is that products don't seem to capture everything that makes life worth living.
Yeah.
As a way to solve the science replication problem. Now there's an incentive to, publish replicable science, because rather than kind of the publish or perish model where what matters is quantity, there's a way in here to reward quality of discovery. If we value truth, then that's what we've done, right?
And so then you have an incentive to do studies that would make actual conclusive evidence, and that would be profitable.
That would be replicable, yeah. And so then if you publish something that proves to be probably replicable, then you'll earn more. And then this would also be a way to fund research in general. As a way to build... Oh, go ahead.
Other than universities.
Yeah.
Universities as a way to fund research doesn't look like it's going to last very long.
Yeah, and isn't it a strange, like, indirect way to do it? Seems weird. Like,
really look at it, you're like, now hold on, wait.
Yeah, like we want everybody to get information into their head, and we want to discover new information as humanity. So I see like the symmetry that they see there, but I think the two things should be funded individually on their own merits. It's just there's no way to do it yet. As a way to build the prefrontal cortex of humanity, or maybe it's like actually the midbrain. I don't know which one, but like it's some sort of way for humanity to think about its own thinking, its own values. And as a way to align AI with human goals. You can imagine that. AI needs some objective function to work against. And so
Yeah.
this would build the financial objective function.
That's really interesting. So instead of having to find a way to codify something mushy like optimizing for human freedom, you could just link more profits. But now that profits don't necessarily mean genocide and slavery.
It's really quite a bummer that's not that far from the truth. And it's definitely the truth in some places.
Literally what it was built on. So yeah, it's super unfortunate. And it's about time to change it. Maybe overdue by a couple hundred years.
So that's moral capitalism. That's my these are every spare moment on weekends and evenings.
Cool. Very fun. What do you feel like you need most help with right now?
I need help with systems thinking. I need people who are good at it. So yeah, so someone who just kind of knows how to even just write down a system and be like, this is how all of its components interact, and or this is how you could do the same thing in a simpler way. Especially systems thinking that spans that gap between computer science and economics.
That's awesome. Okay.
So find that person for me, please.
I'll work my hardest on it. What do you think of this whole project? I know I told you about it in the beginning. You said it was awesome, but we didn't really dive into much detail after that. How does it strike you, this whole quarantine, sharing meals, video call?
Good. I mean, it's fun.
It is. It actually, like, the conversation was pretty, it felt like you were here. It was cool.
Yeah. It feels pretty, feels like one of our normal conversations. Mm-hmm. Yeah, although maybe you listen a little bit more.
Hey. Okay.
So you got to interrupt more.
Yeah, I do usually interrupt more. You're usually more wrong.
That's also fair, yeah.
What do you think my biggest challenge in this project is going to be?
I think there's going to be some technical problems, like video quality. What? You're making a face.
Did you hear that?
I heard like a...
I think a squirrel is attacking my chimney.
Oh, you don't need your chimney anyway.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Okay, so you were saying video problems might be a thing.
I can see like video quality and audio problems being a thing. So how do you ensure that that's consistently good? And
what did you think of the quality of our first section that you saw already?
I didn't think the audio quality was that great. And I didn't think the video quality was that great, which would be why I brought those things up.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a like easy way to make those things 90% of what they need to be. Like have someone mount their phone as well as have a laptop camera and record video with a selfie of a new phone or something.
That's a good idea. Also, like, I don't know how much a good mic is.
Most phones come with a pretty good mic and preamp setup nowadays.
Not mine.
Especially the back camera. So yeah, maybe I can find some way to figure out people doing that. But yeah, it'd be really nice if people had professional USB mics. But that might be a lot to ask.
Could you ship them a lavalier? How much is a lavalier?
Like $30. Could do that.
Yeah.
Not a bad idea. I think what I'm most excited for about the series is I think it'll be pretty easy to ask people questions that feel relevant and timely for right now. My plan for like the first week of the series is just to really dive into the things that everyone is asking right now. Like, how do we do this remote work thing? What problems are there? What stories do you have to share from your experience? I think that'll be a great way to kick the week off. And then from there, maybe there'll be some pointers just from my own experience hosting these to what sort of conversations I should have in future weeks. And that's kind of what I'm counting on, because I agree. Like that is maybe the biggest risk, is how do you have interesting conversations with people when you only have an hour and you're on a video call and you're both eating?
Ah, gotcha. So you're going to focus entirely on like the CEOs of companies that are doing a lot of remote work stuff.
Yeah, because that gives us a lot of stories to start with that I think will be really super interesting and fun to talk about, and relevant for everyone. So very easy.
Yeah, I mean, we're all doing that. Is there enough to learn there?
I think so. I think, yeah, that's what I'm most curious to talk about with Kyle, for example, who runs Martian Craft. He runs a team of 70 software engineers completely location independently. And I have no idea how you do that. But they have like monthly stand-ups with video calls and 70 screens, and
like
a cool thing. So I'll be curious to hear what stories of things going horribly wrong and things going horribly right there have been. I've heard just anecdotally that people are way more productive. They spend more time in flow. They actually get more done when they're not wandering around the office talking to people. But I've also heard that, it's easy to really procrastinate when you're in your own home rather than in an office.
Or to get lonely.
Yeah.
Like there's a way in which the social component tends to be sticky. Like I just wonder, so right now remote work is not every company does it, so it's like a distinguishing factor. Yeah. And so if everybody were to do it, if it becomes completely commoditized, then all of a sudden I would guess you have higher employee turnover because relationships tend to be sticky.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
That's my prediction. But also, there's been a lot of companies that have experimented on and off with remote work. It'd be fascinating to like know why Yahoo, isn't it? It's Marissa Mayer. That is her last name, right?
I think so, yeah.
Who like isn't Mayer?
I have no idea.
Like got rid of remote work completely.
Huh.
Like they did it. They did a lot of it, and then like I can't remember the whole story. They oscillated.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll be curious to ask Kyle that too. That's a great question. I'm glad you mentioned it. Do people develop real relationships if they're working remotely or only in contact remotely? And I think that's largely the question of this project too, is like, can you have a human conversation?
Can you live a completely digital life?
Without being here in person? I don't know that live a completely digital life is the question. VR interview series a little bit later.
I can attest that we hired a remote developer, Andy, and I have never met the man in person. I have only seen him over video chat. I don't know if he even has a bottom half of his body.
Okay.
I know that he has walked around or moved around, but he could have wheels down there for all I know. Yeah. So, and yeah, I love the guy and I have a great relationship with him, and I just talked to him the other weekend, and so it's totally possible.
Okay. That's cool. It'll be fun to find out what different people's experiences have been with it, I think, for sure.
Yeah. If
you were like the director producer of this series, what would be your like top 3 things you make sure we do in every episode?
Yeah, like, because you could think about this as like an in-depth survey of the field of remote work.
That too.
And you want to ensure that all your survey questions are identical for statistical reasons. So, yeah, what do we want to figure out?
Or maybe what are you most curious about?
Okay, so if I was going to make the argument,
the only question I'm asking with this series is, I think, a rhetorical one, because the answer is obviously yes if you think about it for more than 2 seconds. But is it possible to have meaningful human relationships and learn from each other, grow and develop friendships, that sort of thing, even if we don't have the luxury of getting coffee, doing lunch, that sort of thing? I think the answer is yes. And so long as that is painted very clearly in the series, I'll be extremely happy with how it turns out. And I think it'll be really interesting for people just for that reason, the human connection piece. That's what's so fun about interview podcasts to begin with. So I'm not too worried about the larger outcomes of the study, but I am very curious what you want to learn from this, since you're also the first subject of it.
I'm trying to think. Because you kind of want to ask questions that either show some change over time.
You're like, you go into study design mode.
Yeah, that's where you want to be, man. Like, what variables are we, or the relationship between the questions, right? So those could be interesting to plot against one another. You have a sample bias problem.
Okay.
Because you're only talking to people that are doing this remote work.
Oh, that's cool. So maybe I should talk to companies that have never done remote work before but are now doing it for the first time.
Well, maybe. Or maybe it doesn't matter. Like, maybe you're okay with this. Maybe we can ask questions where the sample bias doesn't matter. Because otherwise you might have less interesting conversations.
I think it's more about asking people for their stories. So long as we do that, I think we'll be okay.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you'll have great content. Look, Steve, you find the stories. I want the data.
That's a really good summary of our relationship, I think.
Yeah, it kind of is. You're like over here inventing math. Connor, I figured out the problem with money. Just invent mathematical relationships. It's like, I don't think that's how they relate. That's not how the division sign works. Okay, so I would want to know, we can ask I'm going to ask my ideal question. So maybe we need to back these up because maybe nobody will tell us this, but I want to know the retention rate of employees.
Huh, cool. I'm going to get a cup of coffee while you write these down.
Okay. I want to know, HR overhead.
Do you mean relative to a normal company operating?
Yeah, as a proportion of number of employees. So I guess we'd need to know number of employees.
Oh no, I moved out of the shot and I talked, which means the recording is going to show my stockpile of water bottles. Heavens, people can't know.
Why do you have so many? Are you ready for that much coronavirus?
Oh, I just bought a lot of water bottles. It wasn't even coronavirus related. I don't have anywhere else to put them.
You got stacks of HEPA masks back there too, don't you?
No,
I see them.
No masks. I did look them up on Amazon recently, though. They're $500 for just a normal ass mask now.
Damn.
I saw a post on Twitter the other day that was like, I just found this pack of masks in my basement. I can't decide whether I should send my kids to college or wear them. Just sell the masks and pay for your kids' college.
Yeah, they're expensive now.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm still thinking about questions to ask. I'm making progress here. So, what you should do, which would be so cool, is make a little type form questionnaire, or even Google question, and then send it to their employees. Ask them to get a random sample of their employees. You need at least 20, so it's statistically significant. Wait, 20 is the threshold for.
Your experimental design mode is so fun.
Okay, we'll find out what the threshold is.
Yeah.
And then send it out to them. And then you guys can go over the results of the study together. So that could be like part of your segment. This could be like, hey, we got data back from your employees, and your employees are you could measure some important metrics like the degree to which they feel like they have a relationship with one another, the degree to which they feel aligned with the company's mission, and the degree to which they can state their goals as both an organization and as an individual. I don't know, like we could come up with a bunch of questions that any CEO would be fascinated to know about. And then you could go over it together.
Wow.
Because the hard part is always figuring out to what degree do the qualitative stories that you tell really map onto quantitative results. And so a CEO saying, well, yeah, my employees are really well aligned with our mission and they're very happy with their work is insignificant evidence, insufficient at least.
Sure.
And so it'd be fun to like go over that with them and like, hey, here's some things that you're doing really good at, and here's some things that aren't doing so good. And things I've learned from previous like CEOs that have been doing this well. They practice this method. Whatever they do, they do their stand-ups with maximum 30 people. And so if they'll do like 3 or 4, I don't know what you'll discover, but
I love that. That's very cool. I can definitely do that. And then that does become something where I need to ask people who haven't done remote work or don't plan on doing it the same set of questions and really.
Yeah, it'd be cool. And then compare them.
I imagine that would change pretty dramatically, like organization to, or like team to team in an organization as well. So
yeah.
It'd be fun.
Yeah. Maybe it's not even, maybe it has nothing to do with,
probably not.
Like it might be that there's no dependent, or that the independent variable of remote work has no effect on happiness and relationships.
Yeah, definitely.
Which would be like a really fascinating finding in and of itself.
Yeah. That is kind of the thesis I think people are hoping for as they test out remote work for the first time is maybe this will be just as good.
Yeah.
Cool.
What else are you thinking about?
Conversation, man. I think that pretty well wraps us up. Do you think there's anything else we should talk about while we're here?
What kind of cereal did you eat?
I had Raisin Bran with bananas.
Oh.
It's delicious, man. You gotta try it. It has so much sugar. More sugar than Cocoa Puffs. More sugar than... It's incredible.
That's
but
the thing.
I think it's healthy, which is extremely...
Exactly. Like, if you're gonna go for a sugary cereal, do the ones that are worth it.
Do the ones that feel healthy at the same time. So
No.
And have a bunch of sugar.
No, I say live in the world of eating things that are bad for you, knowing that they're bad for you, and just revel in it.
Exactly.
Don't deceive yourself.
I prefer to feel like it's healthy and worth eating and all this, even though I know it's more sugar than I'll have in any other meal for the next week.
Yeah, I'm trying to quit too, but it's an addicting substance for sure.
It's a good time. Why quit when it's such a good time? There are definitely worse things.
All right.
Cool.
We covered it. Good chat.
Assuming the quarantine breaks, be nice to see you in person sometime. We'll get drinks next time.
Yeah. I mean, since there is no quarantine currently, and this is not China, we could get drinks. We could literally get drinks tonight, but
okay. So
we're too busy.
Let's do a quick wrap up, and then I want to have a debate about where Corona is heading, just for fun.
Okay, fun.
What should we do for the wrap up?
Well, I have things that I feel like I wanted to talk about that are left over.
Oh, like what?
Well, it's like a whole conversation, Steve.
Oh.
It's superlinearity, it's coronavirus reflexivity, it's monopolies and how they relate to superlinearity, and then idea quality and followership, which results in an argument on behalf of TikTok. Something you did not expect from me.
Not at all. Well, fine, by all means. I've got until 8:45. Dive into it.
No, I probably have to go. Unfortunately. So we'll do the wrap up, and I guess I'll just have to...
All of those sound really good, though. Really
have
good.
This conversation with someone else, Steve. I'm scratching it. It says Steve Convo right here.
Yep.
Putting a big line right through the middle of it.
Okay.
And a sad face.
Superlinearity and TikTok and audience growth. You wanted to continue those conversations.
And reflexivity. Yeah, they're good ones. Okay, where are we headed? Wrap up. So we should build a new form of capitalism that treats human well-being as a fundamental asset. An entire economy pegged to the human well-being asset.
And you think the best way for us to do this right now is for you to talk with people who can help you write the system down, get it in working fashion, and launch it as soon as possible?
That doesn't sound optimal, but that's like the best plan I have so far.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. I hope that maybe this conversation results in some of those people finding you. That'd be fun.
That'd be fun. So that's thing one. And then thing two is that this is a really fun idea. And I'm excited to see you do it. You're doing it every day? Is this an everyday thing?
I'm not sure about that yet. We'll see. Maybe
a lot to fit in.
Yeah. But if it's only hour conversations and then the export and edit's so easy because of Zoom and Descript, I think I could do it every day. But I might choose every other day anyway.
I think it's kind of brilliant. Like,
thanks.
Just take the script, delete some words, post.
Yeah, works
fast
pretty well.
editing time.
Exactly.
And then we need to figure out exactly what the survey is going to look like that you ask people. Oh,
yeah, very open
Steve,
conversation about it.
This is it. This is the question that you ask. Okay, we come up with like a baseline survey, but then we come up with a survey that you ask, where you ask the CEO what questions you would have they want to know about other companies.
Oh, wow.
So you have a survey that builds your surveys.
That's great.
Easy.
All right. That is pretty easy. I like it. We'll do it. Thank you for helping me think about it.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Very
All right. Great. Calling it a wrap.
Good breakfast. Glad we got breakfast.
Bounce